Hey, what's going on everybody? It's etaprime back here again. Today we're going to be putting the ROG Ally X up against the Legion Go to find out which one is right for you. And this really all comes down to if you're in the market for a Windows handheld. Of course, there are other options out there, and if you absolutely don't have to have Windows, I would definitely recommend the Steam Deck OLED. Really hard to beat, ease of use, the community is awesome, and it has great compatibility. But if you're dead set on getting a Windows handheld, I think these two should be the top choices to consider when looking at these devices, especially if you're in the United States. Easy to obtain. You can either order them from the manufacturer's website or you can pick them up from Best Buy. And most of the time they do have them in stock if you wanted to go in store just to put your hands on them. And even though the Legion Go and the ROG Ally X are using the same Ryzen Z1 Extreme CPU and 7500 MHz RAM, they are totally different devices in my opinion. First thing you're going to notice is screen size. So the Legion Go does have an 8.8-inch screen, the ROG Ally X has a 7-inch screen, but there are some things to consider here when it comes down to that display. Again, both of these are using the AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme, 8 cores, 16 threads. We've got a boost clock up to 5.1 GHz, and they're both using the RDNA 3 iGPU with 12 compute units that'll go up to 2700 MHz. When it comes to the Legion Go's display, we've got an 8.8-inch 144Hz display with a resolution of 2560 by 1440. In terms of a handheld here, it is a pretty massive screen, but it doesn't have variable refresh rate or FreeSync built in, which means you will experience more screen tearing over on the Legion Go's screen. And while FreeSync isn't going to make your game faster, when it does fall below that threshold, let's say under 60 or even under 40, you're not going to notice any kind of screen tearing when you have FreeSync built in. But luckily, the ROG Ally X does have FreeSync. It's a 7-inch 120Hz 1080p display, so it's kind of a trade-off between that size, and I will admit the 8.8-inch 144Hz display on the Legion Go looks absolutely beautiful. In fact, I do like the color output on the Legion Go over the ROG Ally X. Next thing we're going to be talking about here, and differences between the two devices, is RAM. Legion Go comes with 16 GB of LPDDR5X, but the new ROG Ally X has 24 gigs. They've actually upgraded it. So this means we can actually allocate 8 gigs to the iGPU and still keep 16 for the operating system. And I think this is kind of downplayed a little by a lot of people out there. Having that extra RAM allocated to the iGPU can really help out, especially in newer AAA games. We also need to talk about storage here because Lenovo does offer two different storage models of the Legion Go, 512 GB or 1 TB, but it uses a smaller, shorter SSD known as a 2242 M.2 SSD, as where the ROG Ally X uses a 2280. I've upgraded my personal ROG Ally X to 4 TB, and the 2280 drives are easier to obtain, they're cheaper, and you can get them in larger storage capacities over the 2242. But another thing to consider here is a micro SD card, which both of these do support, so you can add a 1 TB card pretty easily in either one of these units. And one of the most important things when it comes to a handheld, battery size. The Legion Go has a 49 watt-hour battery, and the ROG Ally X has an 80 watt-hour battery. So, I mean, it's a huge battery for a smaller handheld here. And when it comes to battery life, no matter which way you look at it, you will get better battery life out of the ROG Ally X. Next thing we need to talk about here is pricing, and over at Best Buy right now, at the time of making this video, the Legion Go 1 TB version is $749. Again, they offer two different models, so the 512 GB is actually $599, as where the ROG Ally X is $799. We don't have a lower end model that we can pick up, so there is a $50 price hike for that 1 TB model when going over to the ROG Ally X. When it comes to the overall feel, ergonomics, and buttons, ROG Ally X did a really good job. I think it fits right in the palm. We've got these full-size analog sticks. I haven't had any issues with the overall layout with this unit. Round back, we've got 2 extra buttons, and this is coming in at 678 grams or 1.49 pounds. It's actually not much heavier than the original ROG Ally, and as for the Legion Go, that's coming in at 1.88 pounds. So it is a bit heavier. I mean, it's a pretty beefy system given we've got that much larger screen, but the overall unit itself does do a lot more. We've got the detachable controllers around back. It does have a built-in kickstand, and I do like the ergonomics here. If you've got larger hands, this one's probably going to be a lot more comfortable than the ROG Ally X for you. I'm not a huge fan of the D-pad on the Legion Go. It's a bit flat for my liking. I believe they're using dome switches here and they're just not that tall, but we do have a lot more throw with the triggers around back. And one big thing here is that trackpad. It's a single trackpad, but it does come in handy for navigating the Windows operating system. And Lenovo wanted to do something really different with this device, so I did mention we've got those detachable controllers, and we can set this up in what's called FPS mode. It does come with an adapter, so you can place the right-hand controller directly in it, and you can use this like a mouse. It's really like a joystick now sitting on the desk. I personally wasn't a huge fan of it at first, but I've used it a lot more than I ever thought I would. If you're going to be using this in desktop mode on the go, then yeah, having that FPS mode is really awesome. With the ROG Ally X, up top we've got two USB ports. One's USB 4, the other's USB 3.2. We've also got a fingerprint sensor and a 3.5mm audio jack. Moving over to the Legion Go, we've got a USB 4 port up top here. No fingerprint sensor, but we do have our power button and a 3.5mm audio jack. And on the bottom, we've got another USB 4 port. Both of these run at 40 gigs, so you can connect an eGPU to either one of these handhelds. But the USB 4 port on the bottom of the Legion Go is all the way over on the left-hand side, which makes it a little bit of an odd placement if you ask me. Now we're going to be talking about software, and while both of these handhelds do run Windows 11, when it comes to user control, we have two totally different interfaces. On the Legion Go, this is known as Legion Space, and on both of these handhelds, we can access it just from a button press on the controller. One thing I don't like about Legion Space is once you boot it up, they're going to be right in your face trying to sell you games, as you can see here. And I'm sure that Lenovo does get a percentage of this. I think it's on an affiliate link or something like that through a third-party seller. Some of them are through Epic Games. But I will tell you, I do like the overall look of our control center much better over here on the Legion Go. And this is the brand new update. I think they did a great job with this. Over here, fan, CPU, GPU. If you want to control performance, we'll go right down here to performance. We've got a few different profiles we can use: quiet, balanced, performance, and custom. Remember, on the Legion Go, we can only go up to 30 watts on this unit, so a 30 watt TDP on the Ryzen Z1 Extreme. Moving over to our controller interface, awesome animations, and one thing I do like about this is if we change the RGB color, you'll see that the colors of the interface do change also. It's more of an aesthetic thing, but I really do like the way Legion Space looks over what we've got on the ROG Ally X, which is known as Armory Crate. Along with the full-blown Legion Space we've got on the Legion Go, we also have a quick access menu. So pressing the top right button on the right controller will bring this up at any given time. And we've basically got all of the same settings here that we do inside of Legion Space, but we can access this at any time while we're playing a game, watching a movie, browsing the web. And yeah, I mean, it does work out really well if you want to change that performance on the fly. And even just looking at the quick access menu here, I love the look of it over what we've got on the ROG Ally X. And speaking of the X, this is using Armory Crate SE. Now with this, as soon as you boot it up, you're going to get your list of games. And this is customizable here. We can set it up as a list. We can set it up in a larger column. We've got our settings in one area. Calibration when it comes to the built-in controller. So we can set the dead zones, everything like that, just like we can on the Legion Go. We've also got our update center. We can check for new updates across the board. From game visual, we can customize how the screen looks. We've also got a little news section here, help center, game deals, so they're not trying to sell you games as soon as you boot into the software. But the main thing here is going to be our performance. So we've got different profiles just like we do on the Legion Go. Silent, performance, 17 watts. Turbo, this is going to be 25 watts. And of course, we've got our manual mode. And remember, on the Legion Go, even on battery power, we can go up to 30 watts with it. On the ROG Ally X, we can go to 25 watts on battery, but once we're plugged in, we can go up to 30, with a 2-minute boost up to 43, and a 10-second boost up to 53 watts. This would be flat out, just on-wall power. I call this dock mode. And yeah, for the higher-end AAA games, this will definitely help out if you're looking to jack some of those settings up. But for the most part, turbo mode or 25 watts on both of these units is going to be really good for the games you want to play. And performance mode on the ROG Ally at that 17 watt TDP is going to give us good battery life because we've got that 80 watt hour battery in here. and decent performance. Both of these handhelds' built-in software does serve its purpose quite well, but I do like the look of Legion Space over Armory Crate right now. And we've also got access to what they're calling the command center. And just like on the Legion Go, we can open this up at any given time and adjust the TDP, resolution, frame rate. It does come in really handy. Now we need to test out performance on these two devices, and for this, I'm actually testing at a 25 watt TDP. We're also going to be testing at a 17 watt TDP. Through my testing here, I noticed that the Legion Go set at 25 watts does kind of boost up to 26, but at the end of the Cyberpunk 2077 benchmark, 25 watt TDP, 1080p, low settings, Legion Go managed to get an average of 64, while the Ally X an average of 69. And that performance gain could be due to the extra RAM or just different timings on the RAM, but I think it has more to do with the power profile that was implemented from ASUS as opposed to Lenovo's power profile at that same TDP. But again, I also tested this at a 17 watt TDP. This is going to allow you to save some battery. On the Ally X, we got 53 FPS. On the Legion Go, 51. Next up, we've got Forza Horizon 5, which is definitely an easier one to run. But it's kind of weird because I do notice some hitching on the Legion Go right now. I've never noticed this in the past. I rebooted, made sure everything was up to date. Either way, we were still able to make it through the benchmark. On the Legion Go, average of 62. On the Ally X, an average of 69. And at a 17 watt TDP, both of these got an average of 55 FPS. I also tested out the built-in benchmark for Shadow of the Tomb Raider. We're at 1080p, medium settings. Legion Go got an average of 41, the ROG Ally X average of 43, and at a 17 watt TDP. On the X, 36, on the Go, 34, and to tell you the truth, if I was just to run these benchmarks back to back 5 times on each of these devices, there's a chance the Legion Go would come ahead by a couple FPS like the X is right now, but these are really close. The last one I ran here was Wukong, 1080p, low settings with AMD's frame gen on. On the Go, 63, on the X, 66. And at a 17 watt TDP, the Legion Go actually came ahead by 1 FPS. When it comes down to it, I mean, we've got the same APU, the Ryzen Z1 Extreme. We've got the same RAM speed, given the timings on these could be much different, but there's not a huge performance jump between both of these devices because we've got that same APU. So in the end, it's really going to come down to the form factor and, of course, battery life. That's the last thing we're going to talk about here. So the Legion Go has that 49.2 watt hour battery. In silent mode on the Legion Go, we're drawing a total of 24 watts from the battery, giving us around 2 hours and 6 minutes of gameplay, and that'll be indie games. Something like Hades 2 is going to run really well in silent mode. Performance mode jumps up to a 30 watt total draw, giving us around 1 hour and 37 minutes. The ROG Ally X does have a much larger battery coming in at 80 watt hours, and they've done a lot of power consumption optimizations on this newer handheld. So in silent mode, this is only pulling around 21 watts in total from the battery. We can get around 3 hours and 53 minutes out of it like that. And in performance mode, 25 watt total draw, looking at around 3 hours and 15 minutes of runtime. And it's definitely a given. We've got a much larger battery in the X. In the end, when it comes down to performance, there's not much difference between the two. I'm going to call this an even match. They've both got that Z1 Extreme. Deciding on which one you want is really going to come down to the form factor, battery life, and just overall feel of the unit itself. Do you want something with those detachable controllers and FPS mode with a much larger display and a built-in trackpad? Then the Legion Go is probably the choice for you. And if you're thinking about the 1TB model, you're going to save $50 up front. You can go with less storage and just upgrade to a micro SD card and save a lot more. Or if you don't mind having a smaller screen with a lot more battery life, then the ROG Ally X is probably the one to get. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If there's any other comparisons between any handhelds you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below. If there's anything else you want to see tested on the Legion Go or the ROG Ally, also wouldn't mind doing another video. If you're interested in picking up either of these handhelds or just learning a little more, links for both will be in the description. And like always, thanks for watching.